And tonight in our final segment on the MTN News and Montana State University post-election poll, we look at how voters rate our elected officials and how they feel about a few key issues, including some before our current Montana legislature. The results are based on about 1,400 responses from people who likely voted in last November's election. MTN Chief Political Reporter Mike Dennison and MSU political scientist David Parker break down the numbers.
According to the poll, the highest approval ratings for statewide officials go to Governor Steve Bullock, a Democrat, and Republican U.S. Senator Steve Daines. 60% of those polled said they think Bullock is doing a good job, and 58% said the same about Daines. Only 34% disapproved of Bullock's job as governor, and 31% didn't like Daines. Daines is up for re-election in 2020, and Bullock has been mentioned as a possible opponent, although Bullock has indicated he may run for president. Democratic U.S. Senator Jon Tester gets a 53% approval rating in the poll, and President Trump enjoys the same approval mark in Montana. Republican Congressman Greg Gianforte came in at 50% approval rating in the poll, with 45% disapproving of his job. So what does this mean going forward for the two Steves, Bullock and Daines?
Let's talk about Steve Daines first. I think that he's in a catbird seat for that Senate election on two levels. One, I think the high approval rating will discourage Republican primary challenges from emerging, but also it might discourage some Democratic candidates to not run against him and perhaps run for a Tier B race. Steve Bullock. The good news for him, 60%, he's the most popular politician in the state. I think it's going to be hard for a lot of the people in the legislature to say no to him. It also, if he is running for president like he says he is, then this is another thing he can talk about in the stump in Iowa and in New Hampshire.
Next, we're going to look at the results for some of the key issues facing Montana voters. We asked whether Montana should be able to impose work requirements for able-bodied adults getting Medicaid coverage. 76% of those polled said yes, and only 13% said no. Governor Bullock isn't wild about those work requirements, but he is in favor of publicly funded voluntary preschool in Montana. And 49% of those polled say that's a good idea, while 28% did not. Should teachers in Montana be allowed to carry guns in schools? 46% of our respondents said yes, but 42% said no. And finally, on illegal immigration, 65% of Montana voters agree that it's a serious problem in America, while only 24% said it's not. So what does this mean about Bullock's plans at the legislature for Medicaid expansion and preschool? Two big things.
Let's talk about Medicaid expansion first. I don't see a route here moving forward without Steve Bullock giving in to some sort of Medicaid requirement. It is terribly popular here, overwhelmingly popular. And Steve Bullock, I think it's essential to his legacy, both as governor as a potential presidential candidate, for him to get this passed. Pre-K. What's interesting about pre-K, he's got 49% strongly agree with a potential pre-K program. The other thing is there's not a lot of strong opposition. I think it's very possible that he could actually get something through this legislature on this particular issue because there's not a lot of overwhelmingly negative opposition to it at this point.
I guess we'll find that out soon. Thank you, David. I'd like to thank all of the people who responded to our poll. We learned a lot, and we'll hope to do it again next year. I'm Mike Dennison with David Parker, reporting from MTN News in Bozeman.
And you can see a more complete poll, a list of results on our website, ktvh.com, or by going to the MSU Help Labs website.